I started my first year, like you started yours, with what I call first year premises. You have some ideas about what kids respond to, what makes them tick, what they like, what they don't like. You have to have them in everything that you decide. This lesson's a good lesson because kids like this, or kids respond to this, or kids don't respond to this. So you have them, whether you realize it or not. I know I have it right now. So, and that, it's some sort of thing for Teach for America. So it's good to sort of, figure out what your premises are. Here's what I have. I say, kids have not been successful with the same old boring routine. Right? I think that you can't deny that, I guess, because if they like that, why do we need Teach for America? Right? If the old thing is working. So I started kind of with that. And then they used to say all the time, all children can learn. Is that something that people, that's said a lot? Yeah, that's a very weak statement. I mean, all lab rats can learn. I'll go much stronger. All children, not only can they learn, but all children want to learn. So that should be what the phrase is. Because in my opinion, it's because they want to learn so badly. That's going to cause it's what leads to a lot of discipline problems when they feel they're not learning. But so I went with that one. All kids want to learn. And I said kids will behave if they have a good teacher who they're learning from. Right? Because they want to learn. And incidentally, that's one I always have and still have. So, and I've seen it. So kids do want to learn. So I think we've got to start with that. But if they have a good teacher they're learning from, so good teaching, I got to define those terms. Like good teaching must be they do projects, cross-curricular activities, all that. Learning, portfolio management, role play, whatever. A non-traditional assessment has been proven to be more, authentic assessment than this old-fashioned stuff. So I'm going to go in and be sort of come at them from a different angle, something that they've never seen before. I was going to be non-traditional. I was going to make it fun. And if they didn't behave, I didn't really have much of a discipline procedure. I mean, I had some of those consequences. But I was thinking, I really don't want discipline in the way that your teachers say. You can't hear the people in my class. I didn't want that. I said, if the kids have to make some noise, if them making a little bit of noise causes them to learn more, then that's fine. Because my job is not to have sound effects. My job is to help them learn. So I wasn't that worried. But I had a sort of backup plan. I was going to go and make it fun, do all these creative things. And if they weren't good, I would sort of take away, I'd go back to being sort of traditional, which is the thing that location established. So here's some of the stuff from my first year. First day of the first year. I was very worried about the first day because I saw all the movies, right? In the movies, the first day of teaching, I knew had to be the hardest day of your life. Because that's when you walk in like Dangerous Minds with radios playing. And I said, if I just make it through the first day, because even if you have a bad first day, you just got to go in the second day with a leather jacket, and you're okay, right? But maybe I can make it through the first day. So I had something, a diagnostic quiz or whatever. And this is the actual thing. Are you typed in? No, this is the thing. It was sixth grade math. I wanted to see what they knew, so they gave me sort of diagnostic thing to do. And I was ready for the worst, but the worst didn't happen. They were good on the first day. They sat, did their work, and didn't make a peep. So I was feeling pretty good after the first day. And there were the textbooks, all these brand new textbooks came in. But part of my educational philosophy is that the textbooks are no good, for the most part. They really don't address the needs of the kids that I was teaching. So I made my own lessons, primarily based on a lot of the things that I did during my student teaching. For instance, I wanted to really understand math and multiplying. So here's something. Counting, adding, and multiplying. Say $5 for breakfast. So they can count the $20 signs, or they could do 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 and get 20, or they could do 5 times 5. I had to do it all three ways. It's a discovery lesson. They get to discover that all the three ways get you the same answer and the relative relationship between those things. And of course, I had to draw their own things also as my assessment. And they did them, and they were pretty cool, really creative, and I was pretty happy about that. Although I did notice that a lot of kids didn't know the times tables that well, so I knew I'd have to give out the times tables. But how many times can the kids see the times tables, right? I mean, they've seen it 800 times. What, me giving it to them 800 the first time and having to make it crystal clear? So I I needed to go a little twist to it, you know? So not only did I give them times tables, I gave them the alternative times table. You see, this has all the information of the times tables. You see, it's in like a random order. So what you can do is, it's good for studying because, you know, the kids, it's like flashcards, you know, they can, not, you know, this they can use it for looking it up, but this is sort of a nice sort of tool. It's just a twist, because they got the times tables for how many years and they didn't know them, so I'm going to give them sort of a new sort of thing going on there.
What city did you teach in?
What city did you teach in?
In Houston.
Yeah. So, kids were starting to misbehave a little, you know, a couple of kids talking here and there. Eventually I got to division. Yeah, this is reasonable. Page side 2. This should have been by side 1. Side 1 of this test, November 18th. Any math people can figure out what I'm talking about? Question number 3. Take away 315. You see, most people don't know, even teachers don't know, that they think a division is like you cut up the thing into equal parts, but division is also like subtract. You can do it by repeated subtraction. So you can subtract away 15 and count each time subtracting away, see how many 15s fit inside the 135. But you can also do it 3 at a time. So you take 45 away, counts off 3, take 45 away again. I taught them a whole bunch of different ways to really understand division so they'd be ready for word problems. And they were starting to get a little bad. You see, the first week, I guess the first week was pretty good. You might have heard this, they call it the honeymoon period. So you've heard that expression. You hear it in a lot of contexts. You know, it's a time that, like, newlyweds, you know, no one's on each other's nerves. And the same thing with teaching, except also like teaching, it's a time that you're very likely to get screwed. So, because that's what happened to me. And I started going through my disciplinary tactics. People have warning on their list. You see, the problem with the warning is most likely you're not writing down the warning, because the idea of the warning that's quick, it's not like you just stop and write it down. See, it only works, how many warnings can you keep in your mind? You've got 35 kids in the class. So now you got a warning. You teaching, now you got a warning. You got a warning. You got a warning. You got, is that your first or second? You got, that's your second warning? No, it's not. You never give me a first one. So the warning only works if you only have to give like 3 warnings. So the veteran teacher says give a warning first. Maybe they only give 2 warnings and the kids are like, well, I don't want to see what comes next. With you, they want to see what comes next. So you might stop class 30 times to give out 30 warnings. And besides that, you don't even know if you gave warnings. You did. But now you get to the second consequence, which for me was name on the board. Because people laughed at it when someone said it before. But it's kind of famous, name on the board. So you write the name on the board, and then you know, you're back to teaching your math, and then the second morning you're back to that spot. Then you're back to teaching, something else happens, you go back to the spot, right? So eventually you stick to that. You have to let them control you, you know? So you just write the name wherever you have to. Now you got the names all over the board. You're erasing between the names. So name on the board. And then come the checks. Then you have the names, the checks, the warnings. Now you've probably given out 60, you stopped class 60 times. Okay? And no one's actually gotten any trouble or anything yet. So how much time, you've wasted, you know, so much time already. But now we start getting into the consequences, like detention, right? You can get detention. One thing about detention is most schools, you have to, these are kids, right? So you can't get detention for that day because the parents have to know, they're going to pick up the kid, whatever. So you get detention for tomorrow. Now telling a kid that tomorrow he's got detention, you might as well say you got detention 8 years from last Thursday. There's not a connection. That sense of future isn't always there. Although, and most of the time when you do detention, you do it wrong anyway because you think detention is rehab time, counseling and rehab. So even when I did detention, I kind of did it wrong. I had to slip in a bunch of threats, even though it wasn't my original idea, because I realized at this rate, I was going to go through my list, and every kid was going to be in the office. So I had to insert threats in between these to sort of think to myself, the problem with threats is that's just like a warning. So I'm threatening to give you detention, then give you detention. Now the next kid, I can't just say you got detention, because he got a threat. So now you got to remember everyone that you threatened. The threats are just like a warning. You got to remember who you threatened, because everyone deserves a threat if you gave one kid. So very hard to keep track of the threats. And that's when we get to calling parents. But it's not really calling parents. Like pick up the phone that instant and call parents, even if you could. I got my cell phone, whatever. That's a lot of time, right in the middle of the class to do. So calling parents is usually, you could say next time you do it, I'm threatening, but saying I am calling your parents tonight is just another example of a threat, really. Because do you really know that you're going to, or I'm talking to your mom tonight, do you really know that you're going to be able to follow through with that? Do you know that, do they have a phone? Do you have their phone number? Do you have the right phone number? Is the kid going to unplug the phone? Because you told him you're calling, so he knows to wait. Is the parent going to do anything? And if the parent does anything, is the kid going to, the next day, do just as bad to prove that he doesn't care because you told everyone that you were a false parent? He wants to prove that doesn't faze him. Calling the parents didn't work out too well. That's when I got into sending kids to the office. Now, you don't just say office. That's not how it works. You have to fill out, a discipline card. Write down what happened. This takes a couple of minutes. I know I was sending a lot of kids to the office because at this point the whole class, except for like 2 or 3 kids, or maybe 5, are just talking. Like I'm not there. Like I'm the flight attendant giving the emergency. So these cards take a long time to write up. You got to write up what the thing was, what you've done already. So I used to sometimes just have all the cards pre-written. For kids who never talked before, just in case. I saved this one card, and if my handwriting looks like there's some stress in it, it's only because when you read what it says, people shake their hands. Yeah, it says 1, permission, 2, entered room through window, 3 was returned to class after conference and continued to cause trouble, throw spitballs, change his left permission. And so this is actually the second one. This is after people who have sent to the office as their last thing. See, once you send 3 kids to the office, or 5, whatever, every school's got its magic number. It's somewhere in single digits, though. After you send that many kids to the office, they're like back in your class in like 10 minutes. So so the kid left. He already had done this once, and then he continued, and that's what this one's about. So he came back in after enough time to do all this. So I saved that one. So those are your. That's the discipline cards. We even had. There's a panic button for emergency situations. Kid has a gun, whatever. You're running out of options, basically. Right? The process of elimination. You get so one close to the panic button, and it's getting quieter. Eventually, you stand there with your hand on the panic button, and eventually, I was pushing the panic button to get kids, to get the security would come down. You're talking. Everyone was just talking. Right? I'm there to teach. And the whole class, except for like 2, there's some people, anyone have on their thing, anyone have, I'm going to sit down and read the newspaper? Like the class is talking, so I'm going to sit down and they're going to see I'm ready to teach when they're ready. No one has that? No?
Stand quietly.
Stand has something sort of like that. See, here's the problem with that. It's never the whole class. There's always like 2 or 3 kids that are sitting there with big eyes saying, teach me. So it's hard to explain to them, listen, this is just a tactic. For that kid, you got to show that you are fighting for them. And sitting there reading the newspaper, I just could never bring myself to do that one, even if it might have worked. So now I'm out of options, right? So the whole class is talking. Really, you can't even do a lesson. The whole class is talking. This happens to a lot of people. So now what? What are your options now? What are you going to do? Your entire class, except for 2 kids, so you can't even get through a lesson. I plan a lesson, and it would take me 5 days to get through it. Now, this made planning easy. So what are you going to do now? The whole class, try everything. Process elimination, there's not much left. What's left?
Like.
Oh, clicking like that. So and if it doesn't work. So now that one's out. All your options are going to be gone. Anything you can except for one thing. What is it? Oh, sick leave. Well, you know, in teaching, you actually can take what they call mental health days. So you can actually take days, you can take personal days, even if you're not sick. You say it's a mental health day. But you got to come back eventually. So what are you going to resort to? The whole class is talking. It's just buzz, and you can't get through your lesson. You're being totally ignored. So what will you do? Like most, yeah, you might yell, right? Oh, blow a whistle, yell. Let's say the whistle doesn't work. Everyone eventually gets to the point that they yell. Oh, you cry, but then I'm telling you that almost everyone I know, or the 85%, that's the point where they're yelling. And you start yelling, and then that stops where it just yells louder and louder. So some people will say, that's just not me. You know, I'm just not, I don't have a temper, right? This is not my thing. I don't really see myself, that's sort of, I don't see myself doing it, right? That's describe people here. Yeah, me too. I said that you guys got me quiet! I can tell you all day! And that's what we did. I guess you got 5 minutes of silence. And then you do again. Although that one was like a once a day kind of, it's different level. That's like the extreme one. But that's what we did. We did. Oh yeah, you try other things. You have this. Just give the kids your lesson plan. So I did a lot. Plus, I messed up the first 2 weeks, and I'm going to tell you about how I messed up and the things I did to mess up the first 2 weeks. But I will teach this class if I have to. That's me, a machine gun, stepping on a kid's neck. That's how I never resort to physical violence. So people have had that, and I don't approve of that. I'll watch this one. Don't move or I'll kill you. Shut up, Jose. Okay, dude. Jose, check. My favorite part is right here. Nice guy. Because the kids knew that I was a nice guy. This kid who drew this picture knew that I was a nice guy. He was just driven to a point that, you know, I never really thought possible. He was more proof that I was a nice guy. Mr. Rubenstein, I'm so glad to have you in math class. The teacher because he did all this hard work so we can learn the work. Mr. Rubenstein, I know you're so nice with us, but some boys make you mad. I'm so glad to have you. Your teacher. So they knew that I was a nice guy, but driven to that point, I promise you that I never yelled before in my life. I'm gonna, you know, cold shoulders, guilt trips. I get my way in a very passive, aggressive way. I'm not a yeller. I don't have a temper, and aside from doing this workshop, I don't yell ever at any other time. And doing that is very, first of all, it really hurts. Physically, but also brings up emotions and things. So I only do it for you because, you know, I want you guys to not have this. I'm sort of trying to make up for my bad first year by preventing other people from having one. But it's pretty hard. To tell you the truth, I don't know what I say when I do it. I like go into like, I don't know what I say, what I do. I'm sorry if I like was. By the way, this guy's getting pretty close, so you know I told him beforehand. So okay, so now comes the instructional part. That's the part that's supposed to scare you because that could be you. So now, how are you going to prevent that from happening to you? After my first year, which I made it through, I decided that I was going to have to make some changes, obviously. In fact, there's nothing that really would make me quit in my first year, because everyone always said the second year is so much better. And I think you give that a chance. So I said, you know, I'm going to do the second year. I'm going to wait. I'm going to see how the first month goes. Because, you know, things fell apart during 2 weeks in the first year. So if the first month is all right, and, you know, if it's leading towards the same thing, I'm quitting. Yeah. I think that would be fair to the kids. If I, you know, me having 2 years joining this program, having 2 years where the kids are kind of hurt by my teaching. That would be no good. In fact, I think that if you have a really bad first year, you really owe America, and you're teaching for America. You can teach for America the first year, you can teach. So you actually, if you committed 2 years to teach for America, those have to be 2 actual years where you feel good about what you did, and now you got to stay for your 3rd year. So I say 5 years. So here's the thing. I wanted to revisit my premises. Okay, I remember the premise that all kids want to learn. I still believe that, so that was good. But the thing where I said that kids will behave if they have a teacher, a good teacher, who they're learning from. That is sort of true. You see, good teacher and learning, those are subjective terms. There's all kinds of definitions of it. So whose definition are they going to go by? Are they going to go by Teach for America's definition? Or are they going to go by your definition or Dewey's definition? Or are they going to go by their own definition? They're going to go by their own definition. So what is a kid's definition? So you got to take into account that these kids have opinions and things that they think how the world should be, and their opinions are important to them. And that's what they respond. That's what drives them. Like, kids used to be out of their seats a lot, so I was saying, sit, sit, sit. The kids would say, what are you calling us dogs? No, I'm telling you to sit. So I think report this to the principal. Mr. Rubenstein wants us to fail because he doesn't teach nothing. In his class, he calls us stupid dogs. That's why we behave real bad. He's explained that's why we behave real bad with him. And they called the office to punish us. Now, is that right or not? So this kid, well, this kid was really just trying to get me in trouble, but still the idea that their perceptions and their opinions, you got to value those. So what is a teacher to a kid? That's what you're going to have to do. That word, Teach for America, would conform to whatever their definition of Teach for America is if you want to win their respect. Once you win their respect, you can do almost anything you want, as I'll demonstrate with some fun lessons that I eventually did that you'd never get high school kids to do unless they totally respect you. So you can prevent this from problems by convincing your kid that you are a real teacher. A real teacher does 3 things. They look like a real teacher, they act like a real teacher, and most importantly, they teach like a real teacher in their definition. Looking like a real teacher is pretty easy. I know my first year I didn't wear a tie. I didn't want to look like the boring old teacher. I wanted to notice right away, I'm different. Okay, you sheriff is down or whatever. I don't think that helps. My God, I think the kids had plenty of great teachers who wore the tie every day, and they have an expectation possibly of that. If you're at a school where no one wears a tie, that's one thing. Pretty much if you're a guy and everyone's wearing a tie, you get the tie going also. So you need to look in the mirror at yourself before your first day of school and ask, do I look like a teacher? Now some of you, and you have your definition of what a teacher looks like also. In fact, some of you are purposely don't want to look like the real teacher, so that means you know what the real teacher looks like. So whatever you're rebelling against, go for that one. If you look like a real teacher, it's going to help. The kids identified me right away as someone who was not a real teacher. You look like a real teacher. Now, acting like a teacher, teachers develop over years and years certain mannerisms. A lot of common mannerisms. So when I say act like a teacher, I mean literally, like if you're playing a role up there, you're like an actor. Like one thing that teachers are, I've noticed, all teachers pretty much, the good ones, very decisive. Like when someone asks them a question about, like my first day, my first year, I was giving out these classroom supplies, I was telling them what they need, and I said, you're going to need a notebook. Kid raises my hand. What color? I was like, wow, that's great. This kid is so eager to please the teacher that she wants to make sure that she gets the appropriate color notebook. I never even thought of that. I said, oh. Green? So I already got red. That's okay. If you got something, if you already got your notebook, then that's fine. But if you didn't get one, go for the green. You're not going to fail having one color notebook. That was not decisive. My second year, the same thing happened. I was prepared. With no particular color. And move on. Teachers are just decisive. That's just a way. Because they're not surprised. They've seen it all for 20 years. So you ask them a question. Do we have assembly today? Are we going to the assembly? No. You haven't even heard of the assembly. But the instinct of the first year teacher, what assembly? Yeah. If you haven't heard of it, the answer is no, and you move on. If you say it decisively enough, there won't be a revolt over it. Or even though you're not sure, but you feel like going to the assembly. Yes, everyone. You get to the assembly, you get to the kid at the door, you go with that same sort of confidence. We get to the assembly. So teachers are very decisive, and they can answer questions really within like a half second. If you find yourself faltering, bail out with no. Okay, so if like after a half second, you should just go no, and if you didn't understand what the kid said, just no. It's about, but when you hesitate, then they know. Real teachers, they don't hesitate because they've just seen it all before. They've seen it a million times. So another thing is new teachers babble a lot on the first day, especially. Someone once told me that teachers only get a certain number of words that they are allowed to say in a year before the kids figure out, and most new teachers use them up by the third day. So you don't have to say too much. I know I probably said way too much my first. And by the way, I'm not modeling excellent teaching practice in this workshop. It's like an hour, 15 minutes to tell you to do the team stuff. So, and I don't think you'll keep this one going. So, don't use up your words. Don't babble too much. My second year, this is how I started my second year. I probably said 100 words. I was teaching high school at this point, my second year, so I was really scared. I only said about 100 words in two classes on the first day. I came in, I passed out the cards. Real teachers pass out cards. Even if you don't need to pass out cards, you pass out those cards. If they like the cards. So, I passed out the cards. I wrote my name on the board, Mr. Ruben C. Like you see in the movies in the 50s. You got to do that one. That's a quick signal that you're a real teacher. You're acting like a real teacher. I would say things I never thought I would say. Quit that roughhousing. Where that came from, I don't know. You're in this role of being a real teacher. Kids like that. They recognize that. Okay, they've had a lot of teachers that they consider good and that did stuff like that. Now, by the way, to make a disclaimer, what if you're at a school that's totally progressive and no teacher has a tie and no one, everything, no one ever says quit that roughhousing, whatever. You can, and they've had these teachers from kindergarten to 6th grade. If you're positive that their definition of a good teacher is all the stuff that you've been learning, and by the way, we're going to get to that. You're going to get to do a lot of fun stuff when you have control. But you're probably not, most likely the kids think of the guy with the tie or the woman doing fun, I don't know. Most likely their definition of a real teacher is kind of what I'm sort of describing. How about that rule speech? Okay, the real teacher gives rules on the first day, generally. Do they have one rule? How many of you have one rule in your class? Oh, no one has one rule? What was the one rule? Huh? Respect. Okay, I got one rule. This is what I said on my first day. I have one rule. I was floating. I had my own classroom. I had to go to different classrooms throughout the day on off periods because I was teaching middle school. And every teacher had their list of rules. And I'd say, yeah, you see, Mrs. Williams has the 14 rules. I got one rule. And from that one rule, you can derive all these other rules like 6th grade. It is respect. And respect is three parts, right? Respect for me, respect for your classmates, and most importantly, who is it? Respect for yourself. Always make that one third. It's kind of the profound one. Real teachers don't have one rule like that. I agree that people should be respectful, but to me that's not very clear. It's not a clear cut. It doesn't really make much sense. It's kind of ambiguous to a kid. So I always just have like 5. I don't know. I don't want to tell you what they are because some people when it comes to this workshop think that you got to keep in mind that I'm kind of a lunatic. So keep that in mind so that what I'm saying is just an alternative perspective for you to balance that, not for you to go and be me. So we'll get into how I'm way on the other side where you don't want to be. But when you look closer to it, that's fine. I have like 5 rules: be on time for class, don't talk while people are working. By the way, you've heard you've always got to phrase your rules in the positive, right? Right. You don't say don't talk. You say
Speak in turn.
be quiet. Huh?
Speak in turn.
Speak in turn. See, I think it's okay. the way I think about it, if in the Ten Commandments, God can say, "Thou shalt not kill," so he says the rules in the negative. So I think it's okay for you to do it once in a while. The main thing is the rule clear to the kid? Is speaking Torah. I like don't talk while others are working, but it's okay to break that rule of every rule has to be done in the positive. Also, I like calling rules. You know, what do you guys call them? Expectations. It doesn't really make any sense. Oh, he expects us to do it, so we don't have to, but this is what he thinks we're going to do. You know, I like calling them rules. Most, I think real teachers call them rules, but I can see the idea of why you say expectations, but I always call them rules. Let's see. Now, here's one of the biggest things. Teach like a teacher. Find what they consider teaching, and assess them like a teacher, so that they can think they're learning. It doesn't matter if you're a good teacher and if they're learning. What matters is that they think you're a good teacher and that they think they're learning. So, how does a real teacher teach, and how do you get assessed? Well, real teachers are kind of traditional. They give out the textbooks first of all. I didn't give out the textbooks. Terrible idea. You give out those textbooks. That's what real teachers do. You give them out as soon as you can. You saw my homemade lessons that custom tailored to my class. They wanted the textbook so badly that when I finally passed them out about 6 weeks into the school year, they cheered. They cheered because this guy finally did something that they want a real teacher by their definition. And finally, I gave out the textbooks. I conformed to what they were expecting from me. They had their expectations. When they say, "Here, these are my expectations for you, or these are my rules for you." Now, unfortunately, okay, so I would teach my second year a lot more, well, pretty traditional. Got the textbook out, did examples. Didn't really go nuts on the first day with projects and group work. Real teachers are pretty mellow on the first day. They know that the school year is a marathon. And it's not that they're lazy. That's not why they don't do a lot of fancy stuff on the first day. They just know the first day isn't the time for that. The first day is kind of learn the names, to establish the order, things like that. So don't think that, that teacher is creative on the first day. That teacher knows a lot more. They know that this is a long school year. So that's why. And the kids, they may not know why their favorite teacher didn't do a lot of creative stuff on the first day. They may not know the rationale. But they know that when you're doing creative stuff, that's kind of different than what they expect. So that was pretty traditional. And when it came to, and by the way, I think that the honeymoon ends, the time that the honeymoon ends is when the kids decide you're not a real teacher because you've done a lesson that's gone so far over their head, they don't know what's going on. They don't believe that they've learned anything. Even if they learned, that's not what matters. What matters is do they believe that they learned? So how do they define learning? Unfortunately, most kids define learning as being able to fill in a 20-question worksheet and get all 20 questions correct, which is why I gave out worksheets. I taught something they didn't know. I thought, well, traditionally that. Gave out the worksheets. They did the questions. They got them all right. And you may say, oh, that's boring. No, it's not boring. A kid who has never succeeded before and never gotten all 20 questions correct on the worksheet is going to be pretty happy and proud of himself that he got 20 questions right because that's his definition. So you can assess, you can have them, you're teaching fractions, you have them do a skit about fractions maybe, and you see them apply their knowledge of fractions in a right-brained way or whatever. And that's great, and you're happy and you're content that they've learned, but are they content? Because that's what matters. Do they believe they've learned? So I knew that at the beginning of the textbook, I was going to use some worksheets, and I was going to convince them that they were learning by their own definition. They actually were learning, by the way. They were learning by my definition, maybe not as deeply in all the modalities and all the levels of Bloom's taxonomy, but they were learning some stuff. And the biggest thing they were learning was that I'm a guy who can teach. They leave my room saying, oh, this guy can teach. And the climax of my 1-week plan is on the last day, on the 5th day, where I give a test. I know before I give the test that every kid's going to get over 90 on the test. Just like the worksheets I've been giving out, that I've been grading, that I've been working with kids individually. So I'm going to give a test that everyone's going to get over 90 on. Oh, I taught this was in high school. And then I've got it made. That's exactly what I did. Everyone got 90 on the first test. And I'm a hero who they are willing to listen to who they're willing to trade my creative lessons, because I love creative lessons. I can get books, look at, oh wow, that's really neat, that's cool. But you can't do any of that if you do it too soon, you blow it, and now everyone's talking for the whole time. Then you certainly can't do any creative lessons. So I conform to what I thought they expected of a teacher, and I do that for about a week or two, and then I win over their respect that way. So I convince them I'm a good teacher by being a bad teacher, but that's all right. It's a little contradiction, but that's how I did it. Couple of things now. This is about management, and I still have problems once in a while. This is what I call maintenance level management. Even when they respect you because they think you're a good teacher because you gave worksheets that they learned and got them all right, and they think that's learning, there's going to be some problems once in a while. So the number one thing on everyone's list should have been, and some people said it really good, so it said teacher look. That is your number one first line of defense. Do you know how to do a teacher's look? See, teacher's look comes from years of experience, but it doesn't have to. You can fake it. Here's a teacher look. First of all, teacher look is a lot quicker than you think. Some people, novices, will do the teacher look too long. It becomes a confrontational. It has to be non-confrontational. Like if she's doing something and I'm teaching. That's the whole thing. It's very subtle. But if they respect you already, it's kind of you kind of squint a little bit. That's all. That's the teacher look. It's very hard to master, but that's the first thing you do. It's non-confrontational, and the best thing about it, it's kind of ambiguous. Like they don't really know. It's not like a threat, because you can say what you're going to do. So we're going to talk some more about maintenance level discipline in a second. Other nonverbal things are very good. Proximity, not too close, but close. I would do a lot of this, sort of tapping on it's like kids talking, just kind of tapping on the desk or doing that. I was always making like hand gestures, I'm teaching and I'm kind of like, no, so I'm not saying anything. So I really was good with the nonverbal. This nonverbal stuff will not work if they don't think you're a good teacher. You could do teacher's looks to 30 kids that are talking, it's not going to do anything. So this is what I call maintenance levels. I'm hoping you're going to win them, you're going to win them over, and then this is what you'll need, but you need this stuff also. Ignoring it. You just ignore some stuff rather than get into battle with some kid mutters something. See, there's a contradiction. There's the omniscient teacher who's writing and says, Jason, I heard that. But then there's a teacher who is a little bit oblivious and selectively ignores. The kid curse says something, and it's just like, you just pretend you just didn't even hear it. Let's say that, and it's not so bad, because maybe the kids think you can't hear everything, whatever, but at least sometimes that's the kid just needs to say, needs to mutter something, and, what did you say? And just let it go. Let it go. Maybe they know you purposely ignoring it. Whatever reason, that works sometimes. You can ignore a whole day. Like I had bad days once in a while, my second, third, fourth, fifth year of teaching. I had a bad day in class. I would never come in with, yesterday was unacceptable. That's like teacher panic mode. I just come in as if nothing happened, and they force our teaching, and most of the time, everything will be fine. Calling parents. Now, earlier I said I said something about calling parents doesn't work. No, I said telling the kid I'm calling home doesn't work. Actually, calling the parents without warning was probably my number one weapon for a couple of reasons. Let's say there's 8 kids you want to call their parents. You have to resist the urge to say I'm calling home. You say it because you think it's a deterrent. Now the kid's going to at least behave for the rest of the day, but it doesn't work for the reasons I said before. You have to, you get a teacher look. You don't look scared because you know you have some tricks up your sleeves. The real teacher has tricks up their sleeves, and they don't make threats. They just do them. So I call parents a lot, but without warning. So if I need to call 10 parents, I try calling. Let's say I get through 2 out of 10. That's a great percentage. Good enough. Because then the 2 kids come in, I call my parent, and the other kid's like, whoa, what's he going to do to me? He gave me a look like that. Nobody's, at home working on the thing he's going to do to me. Calling, you see, it shows that you're a teacher of action. I never make threats. I would just do it. And then kids would know. I don't misbehave, get a threat, and then the second time, this guy is, crazy. He doesn't give warning, he just does. So I just call parents that night, and hopefully I get 30 to 20% of them. I can even get kids to change their seat. Non-confrontational, but also not with the warning. Just kind of like, okay, you sit there. And then turn around, and throw your guy, no other way to get a kid to move his seat. If you stand there, I'm not leaving till you are, there's no way. So you tell him, turn around, if you expect him, and have all attention, and if he doesn't, then you call a parent. So I was calling parents a lot. You don't have to call that many. So you get 20%. And then kids start realizing, wow, this is a teacher of action. I never made threats. Never made threats. Yeah. My parent conferences were extremely short. They were. I didn't start with a positive comment like you may have been told to do, or rephrase with the kid. You started very energetic. The parents don't like their time wasted with euphemisms that they have to decipher, kind of like the rules of reading. Parents don't like this. They also thought I was a good teacher because the kids told them, I got 90 on my first test. I can't believe it. That's great. Now you might say, well, yeah, codependent, this guy is great. They don't look at themselves. They need a good teacher because they can't do it without their good teacher. That is their state of mind. So eventually we'll talk about how I did a lot of good teaching and tried to give them a little more self-confidence. My parent conference, it's like, messing up again. Help me out here. It's like a minute or something. I don't really think if you start, parents don't mind. They know that their kid isn't perfect. And if you direct and say, listen, here's what's happening. We're shooting rubber bands today, and you got to stop that. And you do it short. If you give like a 20-minute thing, it's energetic. By the way, I should say this, though. I would say at least one positive thing during the conference. I would say, you did well on a test last week. It wouldn't be my opening sentence necessarily, but I would like to say something a little positive at some point, if there was something positive to say. But it just wasn't my opening line. And when I wanted to get to the point of what the kid actually did, I just said it. I think parents appreciated that. Now I'm going to show you some. See, the fun of teaching and the beauty of it is when you get to do fun lessons. But before I can, by the way, is there somebody, Serena, who's in here? I guess you may not come. I have one of my students, former students, who's been in touch with throughout the years. I didn't see her, and I didn't want to give it away, but not here. I can still come. Because this next part should be you to contradict maybe or give another perspective on it. Developing a teacher persona, something no one, as far as I know, never covered in depth before. You're going to step in front of a class in a month and a half, and the bell's going to ring, and you're going to have some sort of a persona. What are you going to be like? Are you going to be manic, Robin Williams, teacher? Are you going to be like a counselor, sort of, how you doing, sleep well? What are you going to be? Are you going to be funny? What is your persona going to be? You're going to have to think of that, right? Because the bell's going to ring, and you probably are going to be like one of the teachers that was one of your favorite teachers. Or, the worst piece of advice, as far as your teacher persona, is be yourself. Because who's telling you to be yourself? See, it worked for them. Being yourself worked for them, so that means you to be them in order for it to work. Because yourself, who says that yourself, you, is someone that you are someone that kids are just going to respect just because they had it. But be yourself is not necessarily the best advice. You don't know that yourself is someone that kids just want to respond to and respect. So who do you be? Well, I wasn't sure who to be. So I started very neutral. Also, I decided my second year I was never, ever going to yell again. Never was I going to do that again. So how do you never yell again? I couldn't think of it. The only way I could think of it was I needed to shut down emotions at the source. If I turn off my emotional circuitry, I will never yell again. It's true. Unfortunately, I also would never laugh or smile in class again, and I didn't. Because that's the only way I was ever going to yell. To me, complete shutdown, no emotions whatsoever. That was how I was going to not ever yell. That's all I cared about, never going to yell. So I was very neutral. Some of you might have seen it. I came in. One thing I know I'm good at is being kind of creepy around new people. Came in, I was kind of sitting there looking creepy. And that's what I did my first day of my second year. I was just kind of saying, no one approached me. Who's that guy? neutral. And that was kind of my persona. But it started to, as the days went on, I kind of got I said I need to look a little like frustrated. This walk, I don't know where it came from, but somehow it went with it. Now, a little more of the persona came as I started neutral, but then as I did different things, I tested the waters, and some things seemed to work more than others. One of the biggest ones is that the kids, first I was worried that the kids were going to think I'm a nerd. That was going to be something they were going to, torture me with or whatever. Right? My first year of teaching, I said, these kids don't know me. People don't know me. I can be whoever I want. I can be cool. I don't know why I thought that was going to work. I said the same thing before the first day of college. So I started neutral, and every once in a while I have to multiply something, and I do it in my head, and kids are like, whoa, he's smart. So I decided it's not so bad to be a nerd, but if I want to be a nerd, I'm not just going to be any regular nerd, but I'll be the biggest nerd they ever saw. So I had to pocket the cat. I would use my nerdiness in my lessons, and here's an example of something I would do. This is also getting to a big point, which is that although I want you to start the year more traditionally than you might have done otherwise, doing fun lessons that are creative, that address different ideas, that really is the goal that I'm working towards. I just didn't think I could do it by starting with it. So I'd use my persona in class. I get in front of the class and say, I don't talk about my personal life, but I actually went to a party over the weekend. Yeah, there was a flyer that said, come to this party, 6 o'clock. So I get, got there at 6. Only people there, was, the owners of the house, but, sat down. No one was really talking to me. So I thought it would be fun to count how many people there were. Do that every 5 minutes. And I made sure that when I got home, I grabbed it. Now this is a great lesson because we've done graphing already, but like each point gives a piece of factual data, but the graph itself tells a story, and they have to make opinions. What happened at 7:30? What happened in order to cause it? By the way, you see in math journal, because they did. I had them write. I had high school kids writing in their math journal. So I was writing in a math class, which is something that isn't easy to do. And this activity, people were really into it. And this is a kid who didn't last that long at the school, but I was his favorite teacher because he felt like I was a good teacher, because I gave him some worksheets at the beginning of the year and he got them right. But once kids respected me, I was able to get kids to do stuff like this. So there were about 40 people at the party. Look at this, look at number, well, you may not like it, number 3. People went to go buy illegal drugs and also buy beer. But look at 8. I mean, this kid's correcting his grammar in a math class. People had went home. So he wants his grammar to be correct. Then he writes a story. One day I had to do a party in my house. But that was another thing. I always, as a nerd character, even if I knew of something, I pretended I had no concept. Maybe talking about band. So hit the story of the year, the people started showing up at 7, and after 7:15, a lot of people went to buy some weed and some beer. The weed was killing us. It was from Cinto City, written in like gang graffiti type style. Around 8, people went home. So, I made sure that all the, what do? You send the kid to the office, or do you make sure all the stuff is correct? You give him 100. So, we did stuff, those graphs. That was different activities, food graph. This I got this out of a good resource. It's actually British. But here's her moves throughout the day, and you can find, things out about her. I like this. Popcorn consumption versus time, and tell a story about what happened. See, this one's good because they're taking obviously handfuls of popcorn. That's why you got this sort of step function. But this one is always the sort of one that, the most creative answer I heard to number 4 is, see, I think you're supposed to say they dropped their popcorn or something, but in this one they ate their popcorn really fast, and they threw up. And you see how it's so smooth? So obviously it must be sort of liquid. It has to be, otherwise you're going to have the jacket sort of thing. So that was something. Here's another one. You know, they say, for whatever reason, I never understood, they say, you don't tell kids how, you ever ask a teacher how much you made. Not only did I tell the kids how much I made, but they did my income taxes. And they got the actual income tax booklet, and they had I taught them how to write checks, with the IM student checks. So what I'm getting is I did creative stuff. Sometimes it wasn't totally creative, but it was better. Like here, I gave him a map and said, you got all these cities, you need to go on a tour to different cities. I made it very structured, though. It's very easy to say, well, write down your cities. I gave him, I did a lot of the organizational work for them. Fill in your cities, use this chart that I made to fill in distance to the next place. Then they have to travel 8 hours, so they have to, I made them do an algebra problem, rate times time inconsistent, solve the rate. So they did that. Then they had, based on the rates, they had to use this chart to figure out what mode of transportation they have to use. And I got one in here. They color it in, all that. So that isn't the most, they did all their algebra and work. That isn't the most creative lesson in the world, but it's something. It's not too bad. So it's an algebra 2 question. In 1970, Mr. Rubenstein had 225 million hairs on his head. In 1990, 125 million. Plot the data, find the formula, use the formula to answer how much hair did he have in 1884, in what year did he have 160 million hairs on his head, and when will he be completely bald? This is actually on a test. So what I'm getting is that I did try to make class fun, and that was really my goal. And that is other fun stuff. So I totally buy that learning is better when it's fun. Just try to do it too soon, you're not going to have anyone learning, you're just going to be yelling at people all day. The last sort of topic is what I call critical thinking for teachers. So you want your kids to think critically, but how critically do you think yourself? Like when you make up an idea for a lesson or some sort of discipline plan or something, you make it sound good to you, and you list and says, why is that going to work? Oh yeah, here's why. Because of this. You can list all the reasons why it's good. I want you to have the courage to make a list just as long of what potential things might go wrong, or what the downside of that lesson might be. It doesn't mean you have to throw the lesson out. It just means you might have to adapt the lesson, and then you might have to throw the lesson out. Or you might have to just make it better. And I encourage you to do that for everything. A lot of discipline plans. I'm going to send the kid to the back of the room, but he goes to the back of the room, they're going to tear down your bulletin board. So, just thinking, and maybe just knowing what the pros and cons are, so you can at least make a decision based on that. It's very easy to pat yourself on the back and only want to think of the good reasons. Here's 2 examples. On the first day of school, should you have the kids make up the rules, right? Did anyone do that with their class? You know that activity? I know plenty of teachers that do it successfully. 2nd, 3rd, 4th year teachers primarily, because that activity is kind of hard to pull off. What are the pros to it? Why is that? Who did that one? What are some of? It's good because. Is that any other? So there are positive things, and teachers that use it 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, it works for them. But what are some of the negatives? I'm thinking, what if a kid says, no one can ever go to the bathroom? What if a kid makes a rule that's too severe? Now, class, do you think that's fair? What if someone has a medical emergency? Suddenly, you have to what if the kid says, we can go to the bathroom whenever we want? Then you have to be like, well, do we really think that that's a rule that's going to be conducive to the learning environment? So really, the kids are just guessing your rules, you already wrote it down. And if they're aware of that, younger kids sort of can buy into that a little bit more. But that's an example. First of all, the kids, they're going to get enough power already. So to me, I think, here are my rules. I'm against the rules activity for a first year teacher to create the rules activity. But it's up to you to weigh out the pros and cons and decide what might work for you. I'm going to give you an elementary school example of example where a lesson got improved by doing this process. My friend Dave, good lesson. First day, he makes a jigsaw puzzle that's blank and gives one piece to each kid, and each kid's going to draw their own picture on it and make their own piece there, and they get the puzzle together. The moral is that we're a class, we're all different, but together we make a real thing. I love that he said to the class, just like when you're absent, just like if there were pieces missing from this puzzle, it would be complete. When you're absent, this class is complete. It said, you mean when we're absent, you take our piece out? But here's the lesson, good lesson, right? I like it. The problem is, that puzzle was really hard to put together. The little pieces were different in color, and so what does he do? The next year, he put a little number on the back of each piece, and said, person number 1, 2, 3, puzzles together. And you might say, oh, well, puzzle good, make him do the puzzle, critical thinking. But he didn't want to do puzzle, how to put together jigsaw puzzle on the first day. He just wanted to make the point that unity, we're all different. So he put the numbers on, puzzles assembled in 3 minutes, and they move on with their day. So there's an example of, he got the potential of what might go wrong, and used it to improve the lesson. So that's pretty much, I think I pretty much said everything I wanted to. Every once in a while, I go home and realize that I forgot something and get mad at myself. I know I left there oh no, did I say it? Was that a really good joke? Maybe I did say it. I didn't speak 4 times, I screamed 4 times. Did I say this? If the little noise helps them learn a lot, learn a little, then my kids are going to be geniuses. Did I make that joke? See, in context. Anyway, that's what the book's for. So let me also tell you. And so, and start writing an evaluation. I don't have papers, but write, a little paragraph. Someone once wrote, I think I got the feeling all he wanted to do was sell his book, which I really felt bad. It's not true, but I am selling these for $10, which is a good price, and I only have 50. So buy them, if you want them. I want to answer some questions while we have a couple of minutes. And if you would, take a piece of paper and write down, it's like a little paragraph or whatever, just what was good about it or any negatives, because these get submitted to Teach for America. Anyone have questions? And I'll be around tonight, and I'll be around tomorrow morning. If I still have books, I'll sell them breakfast. And I'm leaving at like noon tomorrow. So, by the way, I can give you guys, people ask for it, so I'll give you my email address. If you can email me in the middle of the year saying, what do I do? There's not much I can say at that point. But, GaryLewis@yahoo.com, so it's pretty easy to remember. And you can give that out to people that ask, and I never was told. Any questions generally? And Serena never made it. Oh, no. This is like a student who's like 24 years old.
Yeah, but she's like at my school, like she's with me at my school. Like I'm sure there's lots of at TFA.
No, she's not in Teach for America.
No, she isn't?
No, she's a kid from Houston. Well, she's old, she's 24.
Okay.
But she was like when there's one kid who's like, you gotta win that kid over with the whole class follows, that was her. And I talked to her, at least a couple times a year still. You might wonder, how did a guy who never smiled, never laughed, have kids who bonded with him, but it happened because they thought I was a good teacher and they liked me. And I made jokes, don't get me wrong, like that thing is funny. I think kids never smiled, ever. Question?
So we're in our second week of summer school, and some of us are, realizing that we may not have started off on the right foot. If you find yourself in a situation, is there any way to remedy the situation? Do you have any, everyone keeps saying you need to start off on the right foot and get, and you've told us lots of great advice, but let's say
Have you ever heard someone say that, like, you get a second chance to start over at Christmas break? You ever say that once?
Yeah,
That was not true, no.
Is there anything you can do to design yourself to a terrible year?
One thing, well,
Because you are going to make mistakes.
you start back, usually, the thing that caused all your problems was too complicated of a lesson too soon. So if you do go back, I think even my first year, the times the kids were quiet as work when they were doing, worksheets, I still, it was not, I would not give in to giving worksheets. I thought that that was just the worst thing you could possibly do to give a worksheet. And I think I should have, when they were good, so if you back off, simplify things a little bit. It may make things a little bit better, but it's pretty hard. Once they've established that you're not kids, your first impression kind of sticks with them. So it's hard. That's why we want to prevent it from happening. That's okay. These summer school kids, don't get too attached to them. The whole point to them is, so you can learn how to be a good teacher. It's either that or your first year kids. So if you want to mess up, the 4 weeks or the whole year. So these kids are having a fun time in summer school, and if you messed up, I hope you have the worst possible class this summer, because a guy who came to the workshop, and by the way, I should let you know this. I knew this workshop for a lot of years. I went to Teach America 10-year reunion. Someone goes, I went to your workshop 4 years ago. I really liked it. It's great. Did you use the advice? Well, you kind of have to learn for yourself, I think, as the guy said. He said, so I made all those mistakes that you said. So that didn't, really make me feel that fulfilled. But there was, other people said that they did use it and that it helped out. Wait, what's my point? What was the question?
You hope you have the worst class.
Oh yeah, I hope you have the worst class. One guy I talked to said, I'm doing great. I said, what happened? He said, well, they took away my class after the first month because of the school shuffle. I got a brand new class. I made all the mistakes in the first month, got a new class, realized my mistakes, and then it's like jumping straight to the second year. So this summer should be a time to go through all those first year mistakes, confuse them, get them all rowdy, and see how it feels. That's what I think. Yeah, the kids have a fun time in summer school. Anyone having bad summer school experience? I say stick. If your class is too small, I don't know, get two classes together. See how it feels to stand in front of 35 kids. Try some waxing. By the way, I should say this, guys. I didn't say this to any of the other groups. I was thinking about it. How do you transition from the summer to the real? See, you get an hour a day. You want to do something, fabulous, great lesson. In the teaching world, first of all, you can't do that 24 hours a day or whatever, the whole school day. It's okay. That great lesson, you put that aside. That's like 2 weeks from now. It's my goal to do this fun thing. Now I have 2 weeks of lesson plans leading up to it. Planning isn't that hard, long-term planning. But you guys are just jumping to the big activity, most likely. You don't have 2 weeks to lead up to all the skills. I remember I wanted to make the kids count how many pumpkin seeds were in this big pumpkin I brought in. How to calculate it, find the volume, and figuring out how many seeds fit into a cubic inch and all that. And that was a good lesson. Most of you would jump, and that would be your one-day lesson, where you teach everything through this activity. But to me, I said, okay, 2 weeks from now, I was hoping it would be short, but the pumpkin was rotting. But I got like 2 weeks of lesson plans out of leading up to this volume thing. I'm like, okay, I got each area, multi-surface area, each lesson. So long-term planning, your ideas you're coming up with, your 1 hour lessons, that's really like the culmination of a 2-week unit in the real world. So I just wanted to say that. So use this experience to learn as much as you can. These kids are going to be fine. You're not going to do much damage in 4 weeks.
How do you feel about posting your roles? Because I've heard both things. I've heard that you should definitely always have to post your things to refer back to them, and I've heard that having roles posted things is so unfortunate.
Oh, well, in high school I didn't, but I had a friend who had the rules posted, and if the kid was using the wrong, which rule you break, and then they would look up, they would say which one. It's a little bit of admission that they're breaking the rule, as opposed to I didn't do nothing, that they say. I don't have a problem. Now remember, I only taught middle and high school, so I do think that elementary school kids have their expectations of what a real teacher is. I know that all people like to feel like they're learning and don't like being overly confused, and they like to show confidence, but it would be tough to apply. I have no problem with the rules being posted. I never posted the rules. I gave out the thing on the first day. These are the rules. I just said them. And because I was acting like a real teacher, they just knew. I could have got away with not even giving the rules or anything. They just know. I didn't, but I get them all. Because if you start doing it, some kids bring it in, some kids, well, it might be a good way of identifying displaying the problem. So, people always hate that. You know, oh, you're marking the kid. But to me, like the kid who asked me to pass out papers on the first day, and I say, no, I can handle it. You know, I'm thinking in my mind, you know, I'm not treating him differently. You know, you might say, oh, if you treat him that way, he's going to be, I'm not treating him that way. I'm just getting as much gathering information. So, but honestly, if you want to have a parent contract, you get them all back. That becomes your life's mission, because you don't want the first thing you do to not succeed. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with anything as long as it's thought through both sides, risks analyzed, and a decision made to either keep the lesson, scrap the lesson, or adapt it. I hope that comes through clear. I don't want you to be me. I don't want you to not smile ever. I went way too far the other way. Other questions? People writing up their little paragraphs. And we're done. I'll sign books. I'm going to be around tonight and tomorrow at breakfast. That's all I got to say. That's all